Well, this is the first edition of Try Knoxville. It's a concept I came up with 3 years ago, and why not start my very first guest with a guy I went to school with, Chris Nichols. First of all, thanks for taking time out in the middle of the day for this. I really appreciate this, Chris. We need to talk about something that's a hot topic that's actually right at a week away, 1 week from today, and that's the school bond vote coming up for Knoxville, something that's close to your heart. You did a fantastic presentation here a couple weeks ago out at KPAC. But let's go back a little bit. Let's get back into the design of how this whole concept started from word go.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Mike and I went to school together back in the good days. None before like 84.
That's right.
That's what they say. So, well, the way I got involved, and first of all, what Mike's referring to is the school bond vote that's coming up on March 3rd. I got involved in late April, early May of 2019. There were 25 of us locally, wide variety of people. I mean, parents like me and business owners and former graduates. There were a wide variety of people of us that were appointed by the school board to take a look at a facilities assessment that was done by a professional organization. So in other words, Estes Construction, Estes Brothers, they're a company that does a lot of school assessments around central Iowa, really in the whole central part of the United States. So they come in and they look at facilities and get a good understanding and help school boards and school organizations understand where they're at in terms of facilities, short-term and long-term, what needs they may have, what problems they may have. So they did this assessment under the direction of our school board in 2018 and 2019. There was actually some preliminary work done before that as well, but it was a long period of time.
Right.
The school board appointed this group. We came in and we reviewed the assessment, which was basically a line item by line item breakdown of everything that's good, bad, and ugly within our school facilities. And they looked at everything. I mean, they looked at each one of our elementary schools. They looked at the middle school. They looked at the high school. They looked at operations buildings. They looked at the administration building. They looked at athletic fields. I mean, they looked at all facilities. So there was a lot of information given to us. We started meeting at least once a month. It actually ended up being 2 or 3 times a month, sometimes more than that throughout the summer last year. So there was a lot of information to digest and break down. And what we really decided to do as a group was try and separate what we thought were the critical things that needed done in terms of, imminent needs, within the school facilities. And before we did that, there were a number of us that had, different backgrounds and, different qualifications as to why we were asked to be on the committee. So we decided that maybe to be consistent with our choices about what facilities we felt needed to be addressed first within the Knoxville School District, that we needed to develop a criteria, something that we could measure each project against.
Right.
And so that we were consistent with, what we proposed might happen before another. And so as a group, we spent a number of sessions really deciding what's important to the community, what's important to Knoxville Community School District. And the number one thing that we decided that we were going to recommend was we were going to choose, if there were projects that we felt needed to be done, we were going to choose ones that really moved Knoxville forward, didn't band-aid issues, but more so made our learning environments for our kids more of the 21st century learning style, because there's a lot newer buildings and ways to teach and facilities to teach in than what we have currently. So that was the number one thing, is whatever project we chose, we wanted it to be something that really advanced us into the future for our kids. Secondly, we wanted to choose projects that we felt like impacted, 100% or close to 100% of the students. We didn't want to pick a project that maybe is, we use an athletic field or something like that, for example, that only, 20 or 15% of the kids would really benefit from, or we chose projects that every student in Knoxville will feel the benefit of.
Right.
Thirdly, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, but we did want to make sure we choose projects that had long-term impact. There was opportunities, and I'll talk a little about this in a minute, but there was opportunities to Band-Aid, to make some repairs and slightly fix a few things to get us, kick the can down the road, as they say, another 5, 10, 15 years. And we decided as a committee we weren't going to do that. We were going to bite the bullet, and we were going to, take on projects and recommend projects for our school board and our community to follow up with that really propelled us long-term into the future, so people aren't coming back in 5 years looking for more money. And we wanted to do projects that were what we call community collaborative. So with everything that's going on in Knoxville, there's a lot of positive things happening here. Growth in business and increase in jobs. We do have a shortfall in housing, but with the VA project on the horizon, we felt like that's a good, strong, positive move. We wanted to make sure what we were doing supported the community growth in the direction of Knoxville. And then I sometimes mention this last when I'm talking about this criteria list that we had of how we chose projects, but it really wasn't last. It was considered probably as close to the top as anything. But we also wanted to make sure that our facilities for our kids were as absolutely safe as possible, safer than any in the South Central Iowa area, and much safer than what our kids are going to school in today. So health and safety was a critical factor as we chose projects and deselected projects.
There's two types of safety, and I'm glad you brought that up. One of the safeties you're talking about right now is just the overall environmental part of the thing. I mean, we're talking the school we went to school in high school is middle school now. I mean, that thing had issues back when we were in high school that we didn't see. They were covered up at that time.
Sure, that's fact. And very good point. Just little things. I've learned so much about schools and construction of schools. I'm telling you, I knew nothing about it, really. Not like I thought I did back in May, but spent so much time on this over the last year. But, the glue that holds the tile down, it's the same tile we walked on in the 80s. It's an asbestos-based glue.
Right.
It's still there today. All of the infrastructure of our current middle school is underground, wrapped around old lead steam pipe. That used to be boiler heat. Even the insulation that wraps that.
Sure.
I don't think we want to know what's the actual content or what's the ingredients in that wrap. Certainly not what they would make today. So that is one part of it when I talk about the safety. We want to make sure environmentally that we're compliant and not causing any harm to our kids internally, obviously. But when I talk about safety too, I mean, unfortunately, compared to when you and I were in school, there's another element of safety. Right. And it's how people get in and out of a school, how you can secure kids if there happens to be a situation in a school, how you can lock down wings or close classrooms. There's just a lot of different things that can be done. We really don't have schools set up with safe and secure entrances at this point. Not like what a lot of 21st century newer facilities do. That's an investment that's going to have to be made. That's within this project. So we will have safe and secure entrances at all our schools. We'll have the ability to, handle unfortunate disaster situations or whatever may happen in our schools better than we can handle them now. That's a big part of what this bond will bring to the community as well.
One of the things, and when you keep on the safety line, one of the things that's been brought up is the fact that the design that we're seeing, the pictures we're seeing right now, the drawings, they have that glass look to them. That's one of the very first concerns that pops up. But there's different styles of things you can deal with this besides just the overall glass outside appearance.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked a lot about natural light. Again, I don't mean to keep beating a dead horse here, but it's amazing what I've learned reading. And we had experts come in all along. I mean, people on air quality, people on the effects of natural light versus artificial light and learning. Just a lot of different things we've learned about. So when we talk about glasses, we need more natural light. When you and I went to school, a little over 40%, like 45% of the classrooms in our current middle school have no windows.
Right. We didn't consider
we
window
didn't
school.
No. I mean, you're just blocked off. You're in the middle. And that school's been annexed onto so many times that there was really no way for west-facing or south-facing windows to let in natural light. There's it's just building after building, kind of hallway after hallway. But when we talk to these experts, natural light's very, very important. Number one, from efficiency standpoint, so it saves you money operationally, but just the way kids learn, what they can see, their mental attitude, their mental well-being. I mean, all these things factor into it. So when we talk about glass, let's remember that these are going to be licensed contractors that have done this. I mean, they've built facilities with, 2 stories and lots of glass and lots of natural light all over the country. So there'll be the certifications done necessary. There'll be the licensing. There'll be the approval. The permits will be done. I mean, it'll be safe. It'll be what it needs to be structurally to meet any code anywhere. So I don't want people worrying about too much glass. There'll be more and there'll be enough to improve the learning environment for our kids. And yet at the same time, it'll structurally meet any code anywhere. We'll have top-notch builders make sure.
You brought up the environment, and again, going back to when we were in school, the classes in the middle that had no windows, you wanted to avoid them because of the teachers. I mean, you had Deacon, you had Nichols. I mean, that was some scary stuff.
Absolutely.
But in all reality, it might have been a little bit better if you had a little bit of glass window to kind of check things out a little bit. Let's go on to another stuff they keep bringing up all the time about being 2 stories.
Yep.
And, is it, it's not going to be ADA. It's not going to be ADA. And again, a simple fix is called an elevator.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there'll be stairs and elevator. I mean, of course, we have to have an elevator to be ADA compliant. And the 2-story is not really uncommon. It's interesting. We toured a lot of schools, too, during this process. And I'd say we went to more campuses that had 2-story buildings than didn't. Not all of them, but at least an equal number. Locally, I mean, the newest school in Pella is a 2-story elementary.
Right.
And there's a couple reasons for doing that. Energy efficiency. We'll be geothermal in the high school and the new middle school, which they'll be both on one campus.
Right.
And it's kind of, I'm not a great contractor guy, so I'm not going to act like I'm a builder.
Right.
But one thing I found interesting was one of the biggest repairs that we face currently with our old middle school is roof.
All the time.
All the time, just year after year. And it's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
It's not a $5,000 roof like we might put on our home. I mean, this is hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it, and they're doing it all the time. I can't remember the number right now if I pulled the sheet out, but it's $600,000-$700,000 repair it's facing it today. Mm-hmm. When you build a 2-story building, you have half as much roof.
Yep.
So you got twice the floor space, half as much roof. So long term, just a small repair item like that is minimalized. And energy efficiencies, as I mentioned, takes us a smaller footprint. We're pretty cautious about green space right now in our community. We want to make sure we have enough green space for kids and for other environmental reasons. So the 2-story is supportive of not eliminating green space too by spreading it out over a 1-story building and twice the square footage.
You mentioned square footage and costs, and if I remember the town talk that we had, fixing the current situation, the old middle school estimated about $10 million to bring it up to a usable building for the 21st century, but it still leaves us, and I love this quote, I've used it a million times, lipstick on a pig. You still have an old building.
Sure.
Estimated cost on a new one, about $16 million.
That's correct.
With those two numbers combined, there are people who say, well, we can save $6 million, but I still go back to that, yes, but we still have a problem. We still have an old building for starters. The other thing that people can't absorb sometimes when they think about this is the particular layout of the current middle school. With everything that happens with infrastructure, it's always underground. It's always a tunnel. It's always, you have to hire a team of people that are certified in confined space training, which costs way more than your average Joe Blow plumber that comes in to fix things.
That's a fact. So and we looked hard, I was born and raised here.
Right.
My dad retired from the VA. My mom was a beautician. So, I'm from a normal blue-collar, hardworking family. And money, it's not like we ever had plenty of money.
Right.
So, I'm a fairly good steward of money when it comes time to spending. Matter of fact, I'm probably better than most, I'll be honest with you. And I'm a conservative guy. I'm not a real big tax guy. But it really didn't take a whole lot of math. If we did $10 million, and $10 million, it could be about $9.5 million to $11 million. That was the range. And it depended on, I'm talking about if you improve the current middle school.
Right.
It depended upon whether you chose to do just the absolute necessary things or do some of the necessary, required, imminent things and some of the recommended things. It could be as much as $11 million if you did it all. So we've been using $10 million as the main number, which is about where I think you would land if you just decided to do repairs. When it was all said and done, you're going to have a 75-year-old building. And in my good conscience, I'm just going to tell you, 5 years from now or 10 years from now, somebody's going to come back and ask for more money.
Sure.
That's not going to make that building sustainable for the next 30, 40, 50 years. You build a new school, and we're going to make something that's sustainable, that operates at a lower cost,
right,
that works better for the kids, that's safer, that might attract families to our town. And it will last 30, 40, 50 years. You know what I mean? So then when you break down that 10 or 11 million compared to 16 million and you start thinking about the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it makes that $6 million difference very, very small. And that's kind of what the committee decided. It wasn't something where we wanted a bunch of projects to get voted on and go through or the school to spend money on. And then I'll still be in this town 10 years from now. And then we come back around, another committee or myself wanting another $10 million or $5 to make it a little bit better. That didn't make sense to us. The Band-Aid was, Band-Aid it was a direction someone could choose. It's not the one we chose.
Why does Chris Nichols care so much about this particular project? Because I know how old your kids are.
Sure.
When this project is done, you have no skin currently in the game.
No. That's a great question. My last child's a junior, so he won't see any. These buildings won't be done before he graduates. I've had 4 kids now graduate or will have go through the school. I graduated from here. Somebody did it for me.
Right.
We probably didn't think we had the best back then, but I had... Guys, this is a long time ago. This is 1984 when I graduated, but I had pretty good facilities.
Right.
I will admit, Nell McGowan, now that I look back, that was probably ridiculous.
Looking back, it's scary.
We don't want to go to that.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's funny, but in the back of my mind, that weighs into this a little bit. Mm-hmm. Are we gonna just It's 70 years old, the middle
Right,
school is.
right.
So are we going to let this slide for another 10, 20, 30? Because then we do have a generation of kids doing what you and I did, going to a Nell McGowan.
I look at Nell McGowan that we went to as junior high. I look at that, and it still stayed open many years after we went
It's
through.
crazy.
You know, going to lunch down in a dungeon, if you will, which is the same place they wrestled at, was down the dungeon.
Oh,
You know, I mean, it just. But again, we were kids. We didn't know any different. We didn't
No.
care. You know, I look at where you grew up. I mean, smart. You were in between. Hey, you can walk to this school, or you can
I
walk to that
walked to
school.
school every day.
Yeah.
But not like my dad did. My dad walked uphill against the wind both ways for 4 miles.
Fighting
when
off
he was a
grizzly
kid.
bears with loose leaf notebooks.
That's
right.
what he told me.
Exactly.
But I did
Exactly.
walk to school. But you're right. I was in between the two.
Yeah.
You know, so you asked me that question. Good question. I think number one is I felt like somebody did it for me.
Right.
You know, and maybe if we didn't have a great junior high then, and I certainly now looking back wish we'd had a better one. But there were a lot of things supplied for me in this town by other people. You know, I've seen people give back to this community.
Right.
You know, I remember when Ald Park was, you know, going to be either nothing or all grass, and Chuck Gleasy took on that project. I don't know if people remember that. You know, he put that park together. You know, and I remember as a little kid thinking, man, that's cool. Chuck's doing that for everybody. I think Chuck did later for a skateboard. I mean, I look at the group that did SOS with the stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, so my
When
whole
you
point
have
is,
other points of communities around the state of Iowa saying you cannot tear that stadium down,
yeah,
you've done something.
yeah,
You've done something.
and Mike, I guess my whole point is, so I've seen people give
Right.
and volunteer and make their mark, you know, and I haven't done that. And even though my kids won't benefit from it, the timing was right. I had more time on my hands with 3 of my kids out of the house,
Right.
just 1 left. So when they asked me to be on this project, I went in all in. I did my research, you know, I worked closely with all my teammates, and I decided that I was going to come to a decision with the team and take it to the end and hopefully leave my mark or be a part of leaving a mark, because everybody has to at some time, and just felt the timing was right. And then I'll also add, Mike, I hate to make it sound like it's about me, because in all fairness, seriously, our middle school, the janitors and the staff, the operations, they do a great job right
Sure.
now. They mask a lot of things.
Yeah.
You walk through that thing and go, it's kind of okay. You dig down deep in that thing, which is what people that are evaluating it do.
Right.
I mean, it's time, buddy.
Yeah.
We are putting our kids at a disadvantage sending them to school every day at the current Knoxville Middle School compared to other schools in central Iowa.
I still go back to the fact that you have to spend $10 million to even get it to come close to bring it current. And why mess around with that?
Yeah.
I'm a numbers guy. I have
Yep.
been forever. The numbers say that the new facility makes more sense. Besides the $10 million versus $16 million to have a new facility, it makes more sense right now because interest rates are so low right now.
Right.
I mean, I look at the high school when it went through its process, and I think it failed. Did it fail twice?
Yes, it did.
You know, and by the time it was all said and done, it ended up costing us more money, and we got less out of it because we cut off, at that time, the auditorium. Now KPAC comes back later on.
Yep.
But again, that cost us more money down the road. The delay did.
Sure.
And interest rates right now are at an all-time low.
That's a great point. And I've seen people, you know, talk about that, and whether it's on social media or in somebody in the grocery store, and that's come up, you know, in the amount that it's going to cost the taxpayer monthly, the $8.79 per $100,000 home, which we've communicated liberally, you know, for the last several months. And there's a tax calculator, a tax impact calculator on the school website where any homeowner can go out and see what it's going to cost them. $8.79 a month per $100,000 of home value.
Right.
So that the other thing that's been talked about is interest. You know, you borrow $26.25 million as interest. Of course there's interest. There's interest on any loan that you have. But to your point about the timing being right, and that's why we need to do it now.
Right.
I mean, we figured in 3% in that money I was just talking about that's going to cost the taxpayer. But I just saw school bonds sell for 2.27%. So 2.25% interest about 10 days ago.
Right.
That's amazing. I mean, that would reduce what we're talking about in any interest charge by nearly 30% right off the top.
Right.
So to your point, the timing's right. The ability to borrow money at a really low rate is now. And then I think lastly, we should probably mention that people that were on the school board or in leadership of our school the last 10, 15 years, they've done a pretty good job of bringing down what we call our tax levy rate, our school tax levy rate. So we're actually in a position right now considerably lower tax levy rate than almost any school in this particular area of our similar size and situation. So there's a lot of things that are in line that make it the right time financially for us to do it.
The strategy here of not forcing a delay, if someone says, all right, we're going to vote no and this thing does not pass, is besides interest, you're also looking at construction costs. Material's not going down, folks. It hasn't went down in in our lifetime, it just keeps on increasing. Labor cost keeps on increasing. The other thing about this is you have to be careful of, okay, if this does not pass, we still don't have that $10 million to fix what we currently have, so that's going to have to probably go into a bond, I'm assuming, too.
Good question.
Yeah.
And that would be one way. I mean, they could come back with a different plan, which would be to repair and of course, ask the taxpayer to pay for it.
Right.
Already, our school system collects save dollars,
Right.
which is that's a statewide tax that every school, every community gets. Over the next 5 years, we would collect somewhere around $16 million, I think, something like that. Well, that's earmarked for other activities.
Right.
That's earmarked for air conditioning that I know we need at North Star. I mean, it's got other places to go. None of that would get done.
Right.
If they chose that the imminent things had to be done at the middle school, so we'd have a new roof, new tiling, and the infrastructure repairs, we wouldn't improve the learning environment for our students. I don't even know if we'd get safe and secure entrances at all schools, and we certainly probably wouldn't get central air,
Right.
climate-controlled air conditioning. I mean, all the things that are important to the people in the community, which we asked.
Right.
They aren't going to come through by just using save dollars and kind of milking this and walking through the process over the next 5 or 10 years. It's going to take an influx of cash. And I mentioned earlier, I'm not a big tax guy. Schools are paid for by communities.
Right.
I mean, they just are. I mean, there's
no way around it.
No, that's just how it works. And in most cases, and I believe in Knoxville's case, I think this thing's passing on Tuesday. I really do. I feel strong about it. I've got a lot of support around the community. But in most cases, people get it that the backbone of a community is your schools.
Right.
I mean, it is what, drives everything, not just employment, but students and the health and safety of students and keeping kids out of trouble and helping kids to grow and go on and be a professional that they might come back to our community with and make our community better. I mean, there's just a lot of things that a school system drives, and facilities is part of a school system. It's teachers, it's people. I get that.
I don't know if this is an
Facilities are
official
also
study
part.
or not, but I mean, anybody that comes in and travels to us and checks out our community for a job, if you will,
Sure.
how's your schools?
Absolutely.
How's your hospital?
Yeah.
How's your public safety?
Absolutely.
I mean, top three, however, which direction it is, that's what they're looking at right now.
Yep.
All
No
right?
doubt about it.
This thing votes on Tuesday.
Mhm.
It takes 60% to pass.
That's correct.
So, in my eyes, I think it's going to pass too, but the only way it'll fail is if people like me assume that you're going to come out and vote, so I don't have to worry about
That's
it.
right. I worry. I don't worry about that so much.
Right.
I'm glad you brought that point up because, and I'm on too many committees sometimes, but I did a trivia night for a fundraiser last weekend for the junior senior after prom
Right.
party on Friday night, which I enjoy doing. Don't make it sound like it's a task, but
Right.
it's still volunteering. But there were 300 and some people there roughly with all the volunteers, and I mean literally. I felt like 90% of the people there were patting me on the back. Can't wait till Tuesday. Can't wait till March 3rd. Can't wait, And so the support I feel like's there. I go to a ball game. After the game, people talk to me. I'm in the grocery store. I'm at church, whatever. The point is, as I turned around to each one of them and I said, the point I was going to make is a lot of them would say, this is going to pass. I'm hearing nothing but positive. It's going to pass. And the point I try to make all of them is it's going to pass if you go vote yes.
Right.
So I do believe that we have the support. You do got to get people to the polls, and I think they'll go to the polls.
Right.
I do. But I encourage everybody, don't be happy because your neighbor and his wife and whomever went and voted. You've also got to be a voter to go vote yes, and then we'll win.
Exactly right. We're going to wrap this up. Again, appreciate you coming on board, and I'm the firm believer, and I will be voting on Tuesday. I'll be voting yes. The Town Talk did it for me. A lot of questions were answered there. You can still go online and see that
Yes.
presentation that you did.
Yep.
Website, just at the school website?
Yeah, they can go to the Knoxville Community School District website if they choose to. It's .ia.org.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a Facebook page which is in favor, and that's Invest Vote Yes. That has some great information out there. And I wanted to close with something. You and I talked about this before we started the podcast, but go vote.
Right.
And I've been in this town all my life. I respect everybody out there. Not everybody's going to vote yes. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to respect you. But go vote. I feel like if the people that are listening to me and know me go vote, I'm going to get way more yeses than nos. But the bottom line is, it's a big deal for our town, guys and gals. Don't miss out on a chance to be heard.
Yeah. Everybody has a choice.
Yep, I agree. Absolutely. Thanks, Mike, for having me on. This is kind of cool. So
Thank you. Chris Nichols, and again, remind everybody on March 3rd to go out and vote yes.